in this book was released in 2023, I believe. Let me just get it in 2023. This is Kalechi's her first feature novel. I ordered this off of Amazon. I think I got it. I'm filming this video on the 29th of July, so I think maybe like on Sunday I got it. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so I'm really, really excited. This is actually going to be my first time reading this book, and I haven't even looked at the blurb, nothing. I'm just like wanted to do this on video for the first time, so let's just admire the cover. It's so beautiful. You know, it's like this mustard tone, this like burnt sienna tone, this beautiful like purple turban that this character's wearing. This is backwards, but it reads her reality, her power, her destiny, awakened. And you have Kalechi Okafor's name at the bottom, so I'm gonna read the blurb on the back and then we can get into the story. Bells recognize the same strange sensations taking place within her body, and this time she surrendered more easily, feeling herself drift deeper and deeper into the realm of the spirit, her heart a beacon of light guiding her way. As she drifted, Bells felt herself spiraling through an interstellar abyss, the darkness giving way to a universe of stars, a celestial tapestry unfolding before her. She was free from gravity's hold, floating amid the luminous constellations, ellipses. Written with vision and ambition, abounding in wit and wisdom, Kalechi Okafor challenges the apathetic film that suffocates our modern existence, weaving together spirituality, science fiction, and contemporary concerns. Awakened is utterly enthralling. This was just a quote from Chandela Benson. And let's open her up and get into it. Okay, so this is the hardback cover. Is that a hardback cover? So I'm just going to read this portion and then we'll get into it. A hidden power, a sinister force, a mystery she can't ignore. In a near future London where technology affects everything from our bodies to our politics, journalist Bells Badmus wants to make a real difference. She's desperate to solve a spat of disappearances of young black kids, including her friend's brother. But her boss doesn't want to hear it. Instead, he assigns her to cover the unreasonable protests thousands of miles away in Benin against culturally obvious tourists traveling to partake in sacred spirit-fied rituals. Bells soon finds herself in West Africa, ignoring her boss's motives in assigning her to the piece and hoping to use it as a leverage later. She's also trying to ignore the strange, ethereal dreams she's been having. However, when Bells takes the spirit wine herself, she experiences something mind-boggling, something that points to an unfulfilled destiny that could change the course of her life. But first, she must return home and confront an otherworldly conspiracy related to the missing children, because she may just be the only one able to stop it. Okay. Before I read, I just want to let you know that I absolutely love Kalechi Okafor. I first discovered her through this like YouTube channel. I don't even know what to describe it. It was like social justice and talking about blackness and politics. This show called The Grapevine that I saw on YouTube, and I wasn't familiar with it, but they did a special UK edition where the host and the executive producer flew out to London herself, thinking about how strange it felt sometimes to get transport to places. She had changed so much in such a short time. She allowed herself to marvel at the mundane things that would never be seen for her again as she picked up her suitcase, barely noticing its weight. She was glad to have her belongings with her because she was unsure how long she would stay, where she would go next, or whether she would be traveling alone. She had so many questions, and some of them could only be answered by him. Butterflies fluttered in her stomach at the thought. Bells continued along the upward tilt of the street until finally, to her right, was the door she had been sent an image of during their conversations. A rustic-looking door with chipped paint. Suits him, actually, Bells thought. A couple strolled by, immersed in a conversation in a language she didn't understand. The electric excitement danced down her spine. Another adventure was beginning. Bells expelled the air she had held on too tightly and pressed the buzzer. There was no answer, but she knew he was coming downstairs to meet her. Moments later, the door swung open, and there he was. The early morning sunlight filtered through the foyer windows of the apartment building, casting a seductive halo behind him and making him look devilishly angelic. Her angel. What was perhaps more dazzling than the chandelier in the foyer was his smile. No words were needed. He pulled Belle's suitcase into the foyer and gently slid her trusty backpack off her shoulder, placing it on top of her luggage. Without breaking the union of their eyes, he put his hands around her waist and pulled her into him, instantly meeting her lips with his. The sound of footsteps on the stairs made Belle instinctively pull back, a reflex of her British upbringing. But he seemed unbothered, only interested in reacquainting himself with her tongue and lips. Passion is normal here, even at 9 a.m., he murmured. Giving in to him, Bells allowed herself to feel everything she had missed since they'd been apart. When she opened her eyes to look at him once, their sultry hello had momentarily ceased. She saw just a flash of it, but it was certainly there. His eyes turned all black and then back to their usual mesmerizing color. Okay, so that was the prologue. Let's get into chapter 1. Chapter 1. 18-year-old Charles Olawale was found at Grange Hill Seafront in August 2023, and the coroner's report confirmed his cause of death as drowning. During an inquest into Charles's death, it was stated that he couldn't swim, but Charles's mother said it was highly unlikely he would have entered the sea deliberately. Since his death, Charles's mother has led a campaign for further inquiries into his death. However, the police's stance is that no foul play can be proved. The inquest into Charles's death lasted for just 1 day, with the coroner Jasper Crayford recording Charles' death as accidental. 3 months earlier, Belle's eyes snapped open, the glowing numbers on the wall clock in the living room of her apartment searing themselves into her consciousness. 3:33 a.m. Her mind recited Damary's earlier text message, despite her heart's indignation. Damary, Carmen is pregnant. I didn't tell you straight away because I knew you'd make a big deal out of me dating her and not telling you. I just didn't think you were emotionally ready for that conversation. I didn't plan for her to get pregnant, but now she is. We should all go with the flow. Love, light and unity, Queen. XX. It was as though every molecule of sleep had evaporated from her body the moment Damary's infidelity was hurled at her. Hours later, it still seemed to be evading her. She lay there on her sofa, staring at the sterile white ceiling, feeling the weight of her dying love life pressing down on her chest. Whoever said the best way to get over someone was to get under someone else deserves to be sued for this inaccuracy. Bells thought. Damary had been a rebound from the person she'd really wanted to be with, and now he had the nerve to treat her like a mug. The warm yellow glow of the lighting that usually filled her living room had shifted to a deep, melancholic blue since course, Belle, the home integrated AI replied softly, respectful of the early hour. The first message began to play. It was Maria, her best friend since their air cadet days as teenagers in South London. Girl, where are you? Maria's voice was a mixture of concern and frustration. You'd promised you'd come out to the Afrobeats concert tonight. I've been calling and texting you all night. Please call me back, okay? I'm worried about you. Bells winced, guilt knotting her stomach. She'd completely forgotten about the concert, her thoughts consumed by the unraveling thread of her life. She let out a long, shuddering breath before the next voicemail began to play. This one from her editor and boss, Dave. Bells, he began in a condescending tone. I've just seen that you've sent me yet another draft of this article you insist on gnawing away at. I know you're passionate about these missing black kids, but we need to focus on stories that will actually sell. I mean, bodies being discovered near bodies of water. It's macabre and unappealing to our readership, and quite frankly, feels a bit prejudiced to claim that these random stories are linked because of race. Stick to what you're good at, alright? We should talk more when you're in on Monday about other pieces I want you to focus on, like my idea about hip-hop and its effects on gang violence, because you see, that will sell. Actually, scratch that. I'm having a Dave doozy. I've just seen something about protests erupting at Benin against the results there. Something about them depleting their architectural heritage. Bells could practically hear him putting the phrase in sarcastic quote marks. They're blaming the Tories who, yeah, happen to be white, but in my opinion are doing them a favor. You'd fit right in over there. Maybe you should cover that instead. Like I said, my office, Monday. Anger surged through Bells, casting its own fiery presence across her dark brown eyes. Did Dave think she didn't know how to do her job? That she couldn't handle the nuances of writing about the missing black children, something so important to her community. In fact, this story, if things were connected in the way she had been researching for months, could end up being global news. And yet, she couldn't shake the nagging doubt that crept in, whispering that maybe he was right. Maybe she wasn't good enough. A Dave doozy, Bells muttered, mimicking Dave's euphemism for when he thought he was having a good idea. Dickhead. Allocate, delete both messages, she added, raising her voice in a command even as it trembled with frustration, and remind me to text Maria later. Understood, Bells, Allocate replied, and the room fell silent once more, the lighting returning to its usual serene yellow. Bells lay still on the sofa, willing herself to get up and at least move over to her bedroom, but a storm of emotions churned inside her. She thought about Damari, his condescending manner, his misguided belief that dating her was some sort of favor to her, and how she'd allow herself to be ensnared by him as a distraction from a previous relationship. She sighed, remembering Marco, whom she had dated before Damari, and their incredible but too short-lived relationship. Why couldn't she find someone as wonderful as Marco who actually wanted to live in the same country? The contrast between the two men was stark, and Bells could only question why she'd continued to date Damari despite his erratic and disrespectful behavior. It wasn't as though she didn't know any better, or hadn't experienced better. As Bells began to unfurl herself from the sofa, she murmured to her empty apartment, "Something has to change." Heading to her bedroom, she swept her locks into a bun, winding the bronze-tinted tips tightly enough to hold through the night, then wrapped a scarf around her hair. Despite yet another breakup, she wasn't going to forget the upkeep of her haircare routine. "L.A.K.," she whispered into the darkness once she was snuggled under the bedsheets, the determination to rest stealing her voice. "Set an alarm for 7 a.m. I'll see Maria tomorrow anyway. No need for the text." "Alarm set for 7 a.m. Bells," Alec confirmed. Bells closed her eyes, ready to momentarily leave Damari, Dave, and the messiness of life for a few more hours. "Alec, play something soothing," she requested, hoping to calm her mind. The soft hum of a podcast voice message must have been recorded by Alakay and presented as a potential idea of interest. A potential area of interest. The seemingly random podcast choice wasn't random at all, just the weird and wonderful way Alakay's operating system and algorithm worked. Despite the suggestion coming from Dave, Bells listened intently to the host's description of the richness of the forests of the West African landscape, remembering the few occasions she had visited Nigeria with her mother and the folk tales she'd been told as a child. Her memories of past visits were laced with a rich sense of herbs and spices wafting through the air while visiting relatives, and with the rhythmic beat of traditional drums echoing through the night. If they were lucky enough to be invited to a party when they were out there, she felt a pang of guilt, admitting to herself that once she had started university, her desire to fit in had led her to turn down her mother's offers to accompany her to Nigeria for a while. She had adopted for wild holidays in Mallorca with her friends instead. Now, Nigeria and West Africa seemed like the go-to destinations for black luxury holidaymakers, though she had no doubt that white travelers were visiting there too. As her boss had mentioned, Bells had no idea what Benin would be like, but the podcast had her wondering what it would mean to just up and leave her current life for a bit. Ugh, agreeing with Dave on anything makes me want to chew this pillow, she thought, annoyed. Alakay, pause the podcast, she whispered, suddenly struck by an idea. Show me articles on the protests against the building of resorts in Benin cities. Of course, Bounce, Alakay responded, promptly projecting and displaying a few articles from the internet about the protests onto the ceiling for her to peruse. Bells scrolled through the articles by swiping her finger on top of a duvet. Her life might be messy at times, but at least her apartment's fully integrated tech setup was flawless. It was one of the few things in her life that didn't have her feeling like she was somehow lagging behind everywhere else. As she swiped, Bells noticed the far outnumbering the articles about the protests were websites advertising spirit-fine retreats. The retreats promised self-discovery and healing, but one in particular caught her eye. Eurydice retreat, the path of the spirit vine, embrace your inner power. Alakay saved this retreat information, Bells said hesitantly, annoyed that she was drawn to researching something Dave had suggested as an article, especially knowing that it was a ploy to distract her from researching the missing children. Understood, Bells. Thank you. Bells pinched her fingers together on her duvet, shutting off the display on her ceiling. Exhaustion soon claimed her, and she slipped into a restless sleep. As she slept, Bells found herself in a familiar dreamscape, one that had haunted her since childhood. In her almost 28 years, this recurring dream had always remained vague. She never quite knew what she was meant to decipher from it, or why she kept seeing the same images over and over. In the dream, she stood before a vast, inky expanse of space, speckled with twinkling stars and swirling galaxies. Jagged branches made of interwoven stardust reached towards nothingness in the deep, dark sky. Shadowy figures surrounded her, sweeping through the celestial forest, leaving trails of sparkling dust in their wake. Then, suddenly, a celestial being floated before her, their form made entirely of stardust, their eyes like shimmering pools of cosmic energy. Olowa Belumi, the being said, their voice echoing through the void. It is time to wake up. It was always the same dream, but this time Bells was able to speak. Who are you? She asked, feeling as though she was standing on the edge of an abyss, teetering between fear and wonder. Instead of answering Belle's question, the celestial being said, your destiny is greater than you can imagine. Their presence seemed to grow larger, surrounding her. Suddenly, it was as if she had been swept up in a massive wave of light, too brilliant to comprehend and resist. And just as suddenly, the dream began to dissolve. The celestial being's form faded into the vastness of space. As Bells drifted back to consciousness, she could still it's like it triggers the ASMR that I get from people whispering or being soft spoken. There's also page turning sounds, book sounds, and also like the personal attention tingles that I get. I don't know if anybody else gets this, but I also love ASMR videos where someone is so engrossed in a particular task, like they're not paying attention to you, they just focus on a particular task. That gives me that really triggers my ASMR, and so reading is one of those kinds of videos for me. Anyways, sorry, that was just the timer that I set. I didn't want to be reading for too long. Anyways, thank you so much for watching.